Indianapolis Colts running back Jonathan Taylor has officially requested a trade. What the heck? What the heck is going on? We're going to dive into it today on Locked On Colts. Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Colts, your daily Indianapolis Colts podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you all for tuning in and making us your last listen of the day. This is certainly your last listen of the day at this point. This is your daily podcast covering your Indianapolis Colts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Zach Hicks, your film guy over at horseshoehello.com, and joining me today is Jake Arthur, our boots on the ground over at horseshoehello.com, and millions of other people running around behind him. He is actually boots on the ground at this moment there at Colts facility. I'm sure he's getting done a very, very long day of covering training camp. And then obviously the big news that we had to change our entire show to talk about today, which is Colts running back Jonathan Taylor has officially put in the trade request. Now, to kind of put some context, Josina Anderson and Stephen Holder both reported that the trade request actually came a couple days ago when Jonathan Taylor was talking with Chris Ballard. It didn't just happen immediately after Jim Irsay's comments to the media. So I'm not saying Jim Irsay is faultless here or anything like that. Like, certainly there is parts of this where we have to look at Jim Irsay, but the trade request didn't happen like right after, like it seems in the media or on social media today. It happened a couple days ago. We're just hearing about it now. Ian Rappaport is the one who broke the news. And yeah, Jake, I'm assuming it's going crazy over there with all the Jonathan Taylor trade stuff that just dropped, right?
Yeah, it kind of rearranged everybody's plans a little bit. I thought I was coming back to the media room to write about practice, but nope, not at all. Nope. But yeah, no, everyone's just kind of, and sorry for the noise, everybody. Everyone's just kind of scrambling around right now. This was a weird day anyways, because, Jim Irsay, we knew he was going to speak to us tonight, but we saw early in practice Jonathan Taylor board his bus out here. So right away you're like, are they trying to clear the air? What are they doing? And no, it's just been a kind of a wild afternoon and evening of speculation. And it doesn't feel like closure to this situation yet, because like there's so many steps to come from here, but like all of the speculative parts of it now seem resolved. Like we know a lot more about what's going on now.
Yeah. The only thing we really don't know is what the contract demands are from Jonathan Taylor's side. Now, we can assume that he's wanting more than what the franchise tag would be, and that he's going to want maybe close to Christian McCaffrey type numbers, but we just can't really talk with any certainty on that. All we can really talk about is what's been said on social media between the agent and Jim Irsay, obviously, what's been said by the Colts coaches and obviously by Chris Ballard to the media, and all the news that just dropped today, which is the formal request of a trade. Yeah, it's just crazy because we've done so many shows on this week, so many just this week on Jonathan Taylor. And it feels like it's dumb to kind of rehash all this, but like it is really insane how it got this, like, again, just to us, how it got this bad so quick. Like as far as we knew for the last couple months, like there were conversations about this, but it wasn't that awful behind the scenes from everything we knew. Now I'm sure stuff will be coming out here in the next couple of days that'll say like, oh yeah, this has been building for months. But for Colts fans, or even for us who are just, covering the team and watching it all play out, like it feels like it's been like one whole week of just tumbling downhill between both sides, to where now we're at this point where it feels like it could be irreparable. Like we don't know if he's ever going to play again for the Colts. And that's something, if you told me that last week, I'd be like, okay, come on, you're being a little dramatic, but it really does feel like right now, like all bets are off, right? Like he could be playing for the Colts, a low thing, and just be pissed off all year. He could be playing for another team, or he could just not play at all this whole season if he sits out. Like it is absolutely crazy that it got this bad this quick with Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, and I mean, there's easily a level of frustration for him that I understand with the Colts having not offered him anything yet. Hearing Jim Irsay speak today, it's just not something that's even like the subject hasn't even like been broached on their side, which seems crazy because, you know, re-signing guys before their contract is up with 1 year left, like that is something they've done. They've re-signed Grover Stewart during the season. Braden Smith was a summer one. Shaquille Leonard was a training camp one. So there's precedent for this. So like, I understand the value of running backs, but why is the guy who just led the league in rushing 2 years ago and someone who you would hope would usher in a new era with this quarterback and help him out a little bit, why is it like pulling teeth to get, like even go to the table? That I don't get. Again, I've said this a million times this week. Like, I just feel like no one is handling this ideally, and I don't really get it. And it has led to a really rapid decline, it seems like.
Yeah, especially again, just in the public, it's led to a pretty big decline. Again, we don't know if behind the scenes it's been something that's been building for a while, but as far as we can tell, it's just been a mess. And I had a question that was posed to me on Twitter, and I would find it here if you put it in the chat, but I just don't. You guys are leaving a million chats here, so it's hard to really find anything if you did leave it. But I did have a question posed to me, which I was definitely thinking of when I heard the trade request. It's like, when you have this young team, you have a young coach, young quarterback coming in, and you're trying to, for the first time since the Andrew Luck retirement, the Colts are trying to slowly build up this roster. They're trying to actually restart and kind of rebuild around their new young quarterback and their new young coach. Like at some point, this just becomes a distraction that's not worth it, So we'll talk about in our next segment here about what kind of trade offers they could get, or if it even makes sense for the Colts to trade him. But like at some point, just having that presence, like him moping around and having the constant media barrage of, oh yeah, is he playing? Is he playing? Is he, like, all this kind of stuff? Like, at some point it becomes a hindrance to your young team and what you're trying to do. It's not like the Colts are win now, like we need to win the Super Bowl next year or it's a bust. They are building for the future. They're more concerned about 2024, 2025, 2026 with this young core and this young quarterback and young coach that they have. So at some point, like, the distraction just becomes not worth it. And do you just kind of cave and give him up for something less than what he's worth just to move on from this distraction and kind of put everything around Anthony Richardson and Shane Steichen? You know what I mean, Jake? You understand what I'm talking about there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at this point, I don't want to say anything's too far gone, but like, why hold on to this anymore? Like, it seems like a pretty hard line has been drawn in the sand. So, I mean, you obviously want to get value for him. Like, for example, giving up Stephon Gilmore for like a 5th round comp pick seemed a little cheap. You don't want anything like that. Like, you would hope you'd get a day 2 pick or a couple for someone like Taylor, but who knows if that kind of opportunity will materialize.
Right. And again, we're going to talk about it in segment 2 when it comes to if the Colts are able to find a trade partner. But even if they play hardball here, and Taylor also plays hardball, where it's like, okay, I'm not playing until I get a new contract. I'll sit on pup all year and all that. Again, just what does that do for your young team? Like, if he's already not going to be here next year, like, what's the point in having him like just taking up? It's like being the distraction. It's like, when I'm trying to think of a good example for it. It's kind of like having the Chad Kelly on the team in the preseason a couple years ago when he was getting all the media hype. No, I don't really have a great example for it here with the Colts, but it's just like having that kind of distraction when it's like, we're trying to build around Anthony Richardson. It's all about Richardson. It's all about Steichen right now. And if Taylor's already probably not going to be back next year because of this destroyed relationship, like, even if you're just getting like day 3 picks back or something, like, it might just be smart just to move on and kind of usher in the running back committee alongside Anthony Richardson. I'm just kind of flabbergasted that it's kind of gotten to this point so quick. I never, like, if gun to my head before the season, if you told me any player was going to hold out and have this whole media circus around it, I never would have thought Jonathan Taylor. I might have even guessed Grover Stewart before Jonathan Taylor. Like, that's how much I would not have expected this from Jonathan Taylor. So it's just, I'm truly shocked that it's gotten as bad as it has.
Yeah, it's all very uncharacteristic. And like you said, just rewind a couple weeks ago and who knows? I don't know. It seems like the agent probably has a great deal of influence over all of this as well. Because again, it's just like a shocking heel turn almost for Taylor. I mean, I understand why he wants what he wants. I understand both sides. It's just super unfortunate that this is how it has had to go.
Yeah. Now coming up, guys, we're going to talk about the actual trade request itself and if there's actually going to be a team that will pony up and do what it takes to acquire Jonathan Taylor. But first, this show is sponsored by our friends over at eBay Motors. Our partners at eBay Motors have teamed up with Locked On Fantasy Football host Vinny Iyer to bring you some of the best fantasy picks each and every week, all season long. Whether you're prepping for the draft or scouting the waiver wire, every week we're going to provide you with players that are guaranteed to fit on your roster. So a draft prep underway this upcoming season. Let's see who Vinny has picked out for us on this week's eBay Guaranteed Fit Fantasy Picks of the Week. With the top tier quarterbacks off the board in fantasy football drafts in 2023, there's another line of luxury passers and rushers that are guaranteed to fit your starting lineups every week. One of them is Bears' Justin Fields, who started rolling out the garage this last season, is bound to jump up to the fast lane this season. This time, on top of the huge rushing total, Fields can deliver improved stats in the air with DJ Moore now leading Chicago's wide receiver core. Vinny Iyer from Locked On Fantasy Football is going to help you win your fantasy championship. And eBay Motors knows a championship team is about each player being a perfect fit. Same with your vehicle. With eBay Guaranteed Fit and over 122 million parts and accessories for your vehicle right at your fingertips, you can make sure your ride stays running smoothly. Air filters, brakes, batteries, taillights, alternators, shocks, struts, you name it. eBay Motors has it. And they'll make sure it's the right fit for your car because eBay Guaranteed Fit helps you understand exactly what part you need for your vehicle the first time. So go forth, switch gears and crank the AC and say goodbye to sweating if your ride needs a little fixing up. Because now you know you'll always be set up for success from the get-go with eBay Guaranteed Fit. Everything your vehicle is calling for is just a click away. For the parts and accessories that fit your vehicle, just look for the green check. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices at ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers, eligible items only, and exclusions apply. And every dayers, we're going to be covering Colts training camp live every day after practice. That's what this show was supposed to be. Was supposed to be a live show talking about the Colts training camp practice that just concluded. Obviously, it all changed, but every day, as you know us, we're going to be live on YouTube talking Colts training camp after every single practice. All right, Jake, so getting into the trade request itself, it's a terrible market to be requesting a trade right now for Jonathan Taylor because we just saw Saquon Barkley threaten to hold out and threaten not to play. And no team came in and offered the grandfather deal for him or the Godfather deal for him. I don't know where grandfather deal came from, but the Godfather deal. We didn't see anybody offer for Josh Jacobs, who is still holding out from the Raiders. Nobody was even willing to part with the day 3 pick for Dalvin Cook, who is still currently a free agent. Is there a market for Jonathan Taylor knowing that you have to give up like a day two pick plus some change, and then you have to pay him all this money that nobody else is paying running backs right now?
Yeah, sorry, there was just an enormous amount of noise over here. But no, it is a weird market right now. There's only a couple teams that are really even being mentioned in the trade market. You know, you've got the Dolphins, of course. You know, this agent of his has liked every tweet of people saying trade him to the Dolphins. The Jets, but it looks like Cook could land there. People are going to say the Bills, but the Bills don't really invest in the running back position like that. I don't know. It's a tough one. And if Irsay says he's not going to trade him, then maybe he's just going to have to, sit and hang tight all year. And I don't know. I don't know how the money goes for that if someone refuses to play. But I would imagine the trade or the market will be a lot more robust next year. But at the end of the day, he's a really good player and is a difference maker on offense. So, I mean, there's trades and stuff all the time in the NFL where a team pops up where it doesn't make any sense. So something could happen with a team that we're not considering at all because they've already got someone, or again, it just doesn't make sense. But he's the type of player that another team is going to take a risk for, I would think.
Yeah, I truly do not see there being any trade offer. Like, I just don't see it happening. And Jim Irsay commented, which was a great poll, whoever threw that in the comments there, that Jim Irsay was sending a text to, I think, Albert Breer, which you could have grabbed Albert Breer right next to you there, Jake. You should have. Come on,
I know, man. If he wasn't filming something, I was literally going to grab him and be like, hey, what's the market look like for him? But busy guy.
Right. But if Jim Irsay is saying that they're not going to trade him, like, it makes sense because you're not going to get an offer that's worth trading him at all. Like, it's almost more beneficial just to call his bluff and say, like, do you plan on sitting out? Like, you know, like, do you plan on sitting? And I hate this because, like, I'm such a pro players guy and I want players to get their money. And I'm not trying to speak any bit ill here on Jonathan Taylor. I understand why it's a frustrating situation and everything that's going on, but like, there's just nothing that the Colts can, like, the Colts kind of have to call the bluff. You know, you have to say, like, look, unless someone comes in and offers us a first, which absolutely not, there's nobody doing that in this market for running backs right now. Like, it's better just to say, hey, like, we're not trading you. So your options are either sit out, and then once we clear you, you have to play, or you get fined pretty much all the money that you were going to make this year. And then it starts digging into some of your money that you've already made. Or you play out this season, however pissed off you are, and hit the market next year and go get what you're worth, whether it's with us or somebody else. Like, it's a sucky situation for both sides. Like, you don't want players to play for your team if they're disgruntled and upset, but like, there's just no incentive for the Colts to move him unless you get this big offer that you're not going to get. So I just don't like if I were a betting man, if I were a betting man and had to put money on which team Jonathan Taylor plays for last year, next year, sorry, what team he plays for next year, like almost all my money would go on the Colts because it's either the Colts or nobody. Like, nobody's going to come in and offer a trade for him. Like, it's just not how the NFL is going right now. Unless you're Christian McCaffrey, who is also a wide receiver, who only got a third and a bunch of change. Like, it's not like he got this big trade offer for him. Like, the Colts are not going to be able to trade Jonathan Taylor. Like, a lot of this request here is just posturing for the media and just showing his displeasure in another way. I really cannot see him being traded whatsoever, unless some team just wants to go back to 1920s football and goes crazy with an offer for him.
That would be my guess too. Like, I'm sure there's an enormous amount of fines that happens with just sitting out, you know, being healthy enough to be there, but sitting out. But I think what's best for everybody involved is literally for him to come back, play, try hard, and, you know, play hard and have another big season and parlay that into a multi-year deal. Is he going to get 4 years, $60 million from someone? Maybe not, but it's probably going to be a 2 or 3 year deal. But he's going to get out of Indy if he wants, and, you know, he's going to get, you know, more than 1 year on his deal and not a franchise tag if that's what he wants. But yeah, I think that is probably the most likely scenario, is him just having to suck it up and play here, or sit out and face whatever money that's going to cost him.
Yeah, again, it sucks to say that. Like, I hate saying that for players, like, just suck it up and play and stuff like that. Because, again, we've been very pro pay Jonathan Taylor. Like, we have been very much on pay Jonathan Taylor train on this podcast throughout most of this offseason. But again, when it comes down to what's happening right now with the craziness between what the owner's saying, what the agent's saying, what Jonathan Taylor, like, moping around again on the sideline and stuff, like, it's just like, at some point something's got to break here. And I just don't know how this is going to turn out. All I really can say is I just don't see a trade happening whatsoever. Like, again, unless it gets to the point where he's saying, like, I will not play for you guys whatsoever, I will take all the fines, and the Colts are like, okay, let's just go get something for him, I guess. Like, outside of that, like, Jonathan Taylor's going to be a Colt this year. Like, and even if he's disgruntled all year, the only way he can earn back his earning potential is by having a big season this year. Like, if he's going to be on the Colts regardless, the only way he can get that contract that he wants is by actually playing. You know, like, you can't sit out the whole year and then expect to make top of the market, you know, in a trade or whatever it is. So, yeah, I don't know how this is going to end here. I don't really know how it's going to get rectified at all, but I don't see him playing for another team this season. Maybe next year, maybe the year after that. But I don't know. It's just a crazy situation. It's crazy to talk about, man.
Yeah, because, I mean, we're also at the point in the offseason where a team would have needed to already plan and allocate those funds to make this move anyways.
Yeah.
So this is all just really on too short a notice for it to actually happen. And again, yeah, Taylor himself is not in the best position to command just any team to come get him either, because the last we saw him, he was on IR. He only played, half the season, and it didn't go well. Like,
yeah.
Do I have faith that he would rebound and have a big season? I do.
Yeah.
But that's just not what the league has seen from him most recently. And it's at a position that is not being given the love financially. So he's just in a really no-win situation here, if that's his stance.
Yeah. It's, again, I don't really know how much more I can say about this, but I'm still shocked about how it's all played out. Like it's absolutely crazy, but what can you do at this point? But coming up, guys, we're actually going to talk a little bit about training camp. So if all of you guys are here to talk about Jonathan Taylor, you can continue that conversation in the comments. You guys are having a lot of fun in the comment section, but we actually are going to pick Jake's brain here on training camp and see, if we can get some positive things out of this day after this crazy trade request. All right, Jake. So just sidelining all of this conversation about Jonathan Taylor, which it's funny. I actually had someone yesterday. It was like, what off-field drama are you talking about with your show opener? I was like, no, I was saying Anthony Richardson having a good practice was distracting us from the Jonathan Taylor saga. And I really wish we could have done that today as well. Talk just Anthony Richardson and not Jonathan Taylor. But Jake, how did our savior of our franchise look in practice today?
Yep. So it was actually the day where he threw the ball the most he has thrown to this point. Yeah, let's see. He was 9 of 15, so not so bad in 11 on 11s. One thing, like all young quarterbacks have an issue with, it seems like, is getting the ball out in a timely manner, and he's getting that going. You watch him in the RPO game, and he's faking handoffs, and he's flicking it out really quickly. So that's really good to see. It looks like he's getting more command of what he's supposed to be doing. Doing the right things within Shane Steichen's system. So that's good to see. He did have a couple of would-be big gains today that were drops. I think it was Vincent Smith, his guy that he's connected with all offseason. They had a bomb that would have been about maybe 40 yards down the left side that Smith just dropped. So there would have been a couple more decent plays from Richardson today if it would have been completed. But he looked pretty good overall. He's making decent progress. He only had one session with the first team offense. The other 3 sessions of 11 on 11s went to Minshew. So that was kind of a weird ratio how it's gone recently. So we'll see on Monday if Richardson gets the 3 versus the 1 or how they'll divvy up those reps. But no, I mean, he's still coming along, making nice progress. I felt he ran a little more today. That was kind of good to see because seeing a guy that big be able to stop and start and shimmy through the line is just unnatural to see.
Yeah.
But he does it. So, hey, if Taylor's not going to be around, then I think we have another guy that's pretty huge that can run the ball 20 times a game. So
you're talking Zach Moss, baby. That's all we're talking right now. Zach Moss. We're going to start getting Zach Moss t-shirts and Evan Hull t-shirts up to everybody. But
you got Mossed.
Right. Before we switch over to some running backs, because obviously, again, we want to keep this running back conversation going. How did Gardner Minshew look out there? And kind of one theory I want to float to you is, Gardner Minshew is kind of a veteran. He's a guy who's been with Shane Steichen for years. Do you think part of giving him all these first team reps, or a lot of these first team reps, is just to have a guy who's a little bit more accurate and a little more comfortable, like to get reps with these receivers so they get, like when you have a rookie quarterback, a lot of it is him just trying to learn on the fly and trying to figure out what he's doing and stuff like that. When you have a guy like Gardner Minshew, like everything's a little bit smoother, so your offense can move a little smoother. Like, do you think he's getting a lot of those reps to kind of keep the offense running smooth just for these other players besides Anthony Richardson for now?
That does make a lot of sense because, I mean, yes, you're trying to get your quarterback ready, but you do have a whole other roster of players to get ready as well. So that does make sense. And you do want to see, for even for Anthony's benefit, you want to see the other guy who has been in the system for a couple of years. This is how it's supposed to go right here. But as far as performance goes, I thought Minshew was pretty good today. He likes to take some shots downfield. Him and I think Brashad Perriman had one today that went well. Mm-hmm. A lot of involvement from the tight ends from both quarterbacks today. Ogletree, Woods, Mo Alley Cox, Kylan Granson, they were all pretty heavily involved in the passing game today. So that's kind of another sign of things to come. You've talked a lot about Shane Steichen's offense being very tight end heavy, and don't worry about the sideline noise. But no, this was a good day to see what Shane Steichen's offense might look a little bit like.
Yep. And then one more thing I wanted to ask about the offense is all the running backs. Obviously we talked Jonathan Taylor this whole episode, and we don't know if he's actually going to play this year. So how have, Zach Boss, Evan Hull, Jake Funk, Deion Jackson, and Xavier Scott, my boy Xavier Scott, how have these guys been looking so far in camp?
Yeah, so yesterday's practice was like the big one for the running backs. It was pretty good. Now today it was just kind of ho-hum. You didn't get a lot of would-be deep gains, but it was all right. These guys are pretty good at catching the ball. Just it was an okay day by the running backs. Nothing spectacular, but
pretty good.
Xavier Scott. Xavier Scott. I will say I actually talked to him after practice. It does look like he's going to be a running back moving forward. I know there was questions there about moving from receiver to running back. Running back is probably where he's going to stay. He said he's really comfortable there. That's a place he can maximize his abilities. Kind of a Swiss Army knife type of player. So that was cool.
For all of you guys just tuning in about the slamming door, Jake is actually at the facility right now. So that's why the door is slamming and people are running around by him. Like, people are going home and Jake is sitting in a dark corner of the place right there.
I'm outside.
Right. Oh, okay. Outside, sitting by a dark corner. That's what he's doing.
Dark thoughts.
But switching over to defense, because again, we couldn't devote a whole show here to practice, unfortunately. So don't worry, guys. Next week, we might actually come back to this conversation from Saturday and go a little bit more into this practice that Jake actually watched today. But one more thing I wanted to ask you is about the defense here, Jake. I saw a couple corners making some plays yet again, which obviously that is the biggest storyline on the Colts defense right now. How did some of these corners look? And I know Darius Rush was also out today, right?
Yes, Rush came up because he was in yesterday, so his injury was undisclosed. We didn't really get a chance to ask about that. So it was Darrell Baker Jr. again and Dallas Flowers on the outside. So Jalen Jones, the rookie, he had a nice pass breakup at one point. He was running downfield, and let's see. Yeah, it's somewhere here in my notes. But no, Jones had a really nice play running downfield with, I think it was Vincent Smith again or Brashad Perriman, someone who's got a lot of speed. But he was able to break that up, and it was a really confident play. Like you could tell, like he knew that he was just going to break it up the whole time. Kenny Moore, for yet another day, had a big play. The ball got into Michael Pittman's grasp, and Kenny just kind of flew in and wrestled it away. And another day, another big play. This guy really looks like he's having fun and cutting loose again. So that's good to see. Yeah,
that's good. And you know what? To kind of bring this whole conversation back together is, with Jonathan Taylor being a little displeased on the sideline. We saw that last year in Kenny Moore in some practices and stuff. And all the energy that we saw from Kenny Moore was just not there last year. And it was a really rough season for him. But now, after some time, and even without getting a new contract, Kenny Moore is looking like Kenny Moore again. So let's not close the door completely on Jonathan Taylor being back and turning it around and getting back to Jonathan Taylor things on the sidelines and stuff like that. But it is good to see that Kenny Moore is, out there looking like Kenny Moore again. And one more player we have to check on before we close out, just because I feel like we have to do a daily report on this guy, Shaquille Leonard, again, back out there looking like Shaquille Leonard again, or was it a little bit limited?
Yep. No, every day he's been out there with the ones, running around, being involved, communicating with his teammates. It's like he never left. Now we're still waiting on a big play to come up. But I mean, otherwise he doesn't look like a liability out there. I mean, he looks like himself, but those big plays will come. We know they will.
Yep. That's good to see. Well, guys, I think that's pretty much all we have for tonight. We appreciate you joining us. Over 200 of you guys joining us nearly at 10 o'clock here on the East Coast. So really awesome to see all the comments. I really wish we could have got to more of these comments and talked more training camp, but obviously 30-minute show, we have to kind of hone in what we're talking about and talking all about everything that was happening. So love the comments. If you guys are a big fan of the show, please hit that subscribe button. Please hit the like button. Leave comments under the show after it posts and stuff like that, and continue the conversation there if you want. We love it all right there. And every day is, again, every single day after practice, Monday through Friday. And even on Saturdays, like we did today, we'll be going on here live on YouTube to talk all about the Indianapolis Colts and what happened in practice. We will probably take a day next week as well to talk about this past practice, like just a little bit, so Jake can actually tell us what, like, everything that happened outside of just a couple of quick notes there. But again, if you guys don't already, follow at Locked On Colts, at Jake Arthur NFL, and at Zach Hicks 2, all on Twitter. Also subscribe to Locked On Colts podcast on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. We love your guys' ratings and reviews, and we'll see you guys bright and early, middle of the day, and late at night next week.